Hello everyone, welcome back to our channel, Rebecca, Stu, and the crew. If you're new here, welcome. I'm Rebecca and today we're going to make two different projects, one using this Dollar Tree sign to make this farmhouse sign, and then we're also going to use this little basket that I found at the Dollar Tree to make a farmhouse basket. They are so cute. I love how they turned out. So the supplies you're going to need to create project number one are one of these Dollar Tree signs that are out right now for Easter. You'll also need either some regular paint or some spray paint, any color of your choice. You'll need some ribbon that coordinates with your paint color. And then you'll either need some sandpaper or a razor blade. I picked this up at the Dollar Tree. You'll need some stencils or a printout from the computer will also work. You will need some chalkboard paint or just some regular black paint, a little bit of greenery for the top if you choose to add that to your project. You're going to need some paint brushes, and then I also used a little bit of this Waverly Wax water-based sealant to make it look weathered on the edges. You're also going to need some twine, a little bit of sandpaper if you choose to use that on your project. You'll need some hot glue, a pair of scissors, and then I also used a little tiny bit of painter's tape. So let's get crafty. So the first thing I did is I started to use my razor blade to scrape off the glitter. You can just use sandpaper. I ended up deciding to take that whole entire sticker off of this sign just because it was easier. There was a lot of glitter on this sign, so I just removed the whole entire paper sticker. So then I took it outside and I used my white spray paint to give it 2 coats of spray paint. The spray paint I got was kind of cheap, so it did take 2 coats, and then I let that dry for about half an hour. Once that was dry to the touch, I brought it inside, and I'm using the stencil that I picked up at Hobby Lobby. I believe it was $2.99, and I used a 40% off sticker when I purchased this a few months ago. All I'm going to do is center this on my sign and then use a little bit of painter's tape to hold that down. Then I took this chalkboard paint that I found at the Dollar Tree as well as the stencil brush from Dollar Tree, and I loaded my brush with the black chalk paint. Then very carefully around the edges here, I just worked in small, really light circles so that I would make sure that the paint didn't get up underneath of those edges of the stencils. So it's not a race. You just want to take your time and work very slowly as you go around your stencils so that you don't get that paint up underneath of there. If you do, it's not the end of the world. You can use a paint marker. You could use a Q-tip to clean it up. There's ways that you can clean up the lines that get underneath of there. So I let that dry for just a little bit, and then I very carefully lifted the stencil up off of my sign. So now using the paintbrush and this Waverly water-based wax, I just put some really light like brown marks around the edges of the sign. I don't know what happened to my footage that showed me putting that on the edges. I'm hoping you can see it in the video. And then I just took a smaller fine paintbrush and I painted little like spots to make it look like it was rusted around the edges, which is just, there's no right way or wrong way to do this. You just want to work slowly and just do some little patterns around the edges every so often to make it look like you have some like rusty spots on the edge. Then I did just put some dark paint up and down the sides, and then I just literally blurred it with my finger. You can use again a Q-tip or a cotton swab to do that if you like, but really it's not necessary. You just want to put a little tiny bit of that paint on and then smear it. So that's what the bottom looks like and the edges there. Then I took my sandpaper and I wanted it to have a little bit more of a weathered look, so I just sanded it just a little bit to scuff up the paint a tiny little bit on top, and then brushed off that little bit of sandpaper. And then I'm taking this ribbon and I'm going to make 2 loops and then tie those around just like a regular bow. If you do it this way, the loops stay towards the top of the bow, which is a lot easier. Sometimes if you tie it just like you're tying a shoe, it's a little bit harder to get those loops to stay up at the top of the bow. And then this way you can pull those little tabs and you can make the loops as small or as big as you want. Then I just dovetailed the edges, and I haven't glued it on yet because I took this little bit of greenery that I had, these eucalyptus leaves from Walmart. I just had from another project. I cut 2 small pieces off and I just hot glued those down into place up at the top. But I was careful not to cover up that little hole at the top where the twine will go in to hang this project up. So once I did that, I put a little bit more glue at the top. of the greenery there, and then covered that up with the bow. Then I took a little piece of twine and made a small hanger for the top just by looping that through and cutting off the excess. You can make that as big or as small as you want depending on where you're going to hang that at. And so this is the whole first finished project. It was super easy to make. The longest part of it was just letting the paint dry. I love how it turned out. I hope you guys do too. And now we're going to move on to project number 2. So the supplies you're going to need for the second project, again, are one of these baskets from the Dollar Tree. They have them out right now for spring. You'll need some twine and some of this nautical rope. You'll also need a chalkboard tag if you choose to use one. You're going to want some ribbon that coordinates with your basket. Any color is fine. And you'll also want some spray paint for this. Then I picked up this little metal cow. I got this at Dollar General for $1. They also have a pig, a lamb, and I believe a rooster. And I did use a lighter, a pair of scissors, and my hot glue gun. So the first thing I did was spray paint my basket outside. The nice thing about this basket, the holes are big enough so as you spray paint it, it mostly sprays the inside lines as well, as you could see here. But I did flip it over and do the whole inside and the top once the bottom was dry. While that was drying, I pulled apart this nautical rope so that it would be ready to wrap around my handles here once my basket was dry. So just using a little bit of hot glue, I'm going to take the twine or this nautical rope here and start wrapping it around the little handles that they have on the sides. So you want to go slow because you want to be able to make sure that you're putting that rope right up next to the last piece you just put up there. And then for each section, I didn't do a long line of hot glue because I wanted to make sure it wasn't drying before I could get the rope around the handles. I would just do one tiny dot of hot glue, and then I would wrap that around as tight as I could get it, holding it in place with one hand while I wrapped it with the other, and then just kept going all the way through the handle here until the end. Once I got to the end of the handle, I pulled up on the rope and then I hot glued it there, and then I cut the excess off. Then taking my hot glue, I took that little tiny tab that you can still see, put a small dot of hot glue, and then held that down. If you had a popsicle stick, this would be helpful. I just used a spare piece of the rope that I had to help smooth that little end down so you wouldn't see it. So I took my lighter, and very carefully you want to singe off those little hairs that are sticking off of your rope. That actually kind of helps melt the rope together as well and helps hold it on. So now taking this cow, I'm just going to take this little wire hanger off of it. I'm going to fish this twine from the Dollar Tree through it across the front, and then I pull that through the basket, making sure that I have it centered before I tie it into place. Once I knew it was centered, I just tied that down on the back and cut off the excess. Then I flipped this up, and I used a little bit of hot glue on the little rungs of the basket here to hold the rest of that cow down on the front, just because it wants to flop out a little bit because the basket is angled. So once that was done, I made a really tiny bow using my Farmhouse ribbon that I picked up at the Dollar Tree, and then I just glued that right to the top center of the cow to hide that piece of twine just a tiny bit. So once that was done, all that was left was to take this little chalkboard tag. I made a small twine bow and just hot glued that on the front, and then put a little twine hanger through the front of that. I'm using a Dollar Tree chalk marker to write Farmers Market on the tag here. They sell these at Dollar Tree in lots of different colors. And then once that was done, all I did was tie it to the corner of the basket. And I did use a little dot of hot glue to help hold that in the front, just because I thought it looked cute there. And that's the whole basket from start to finish. I love how both of these projects turned out. They were really inexpensive to make. Since I owned almost everything, I only had to buy the sign, the cow, and the basket. So all in all, it only cost me $3 to make both of these. Thank you guys so much for watching. Please subscribe if you haven't done so already. Don't forget to like and share this video. And here are some other videos from our channel you might also enjoy. Have a great day.